Welcome back to Lacrosse TV. This is the PLL Week 3 preview. The games are down in Philadelphia this weekend, Villanova Stadium. Shout out the Wildcats. Always a great crowd down in Philly, so should be a good weekend. I think we're in for a couple great matchups. We'll start out with rivalry, game 1, Boston versus Philadelphia. Obviously a huge game. These two teams, there's a lot of bad blood. They've had some tough matchups in the PLL Champ Series. They're two teams that do not like each other. This is going to be a physical and fast game. Let's get right into the keys to victory for each team. For Philly, I think it's going to be the middle of the field play. They need to be dialed in this aspect. Boston's 2-0, obviously. Their first two wins, Utah and New York, they were not dialed in this part of the game. Clearing turnovers, early offense turnovers, stuff like that. It gave Boston a couple extra possessions, which I feel like ended up deciding the game. So I think that's going to be a key for Philly to be clean in the middle of the field this game. Be patient in early offense. Don't turn the ball over, because if you give Boston extra possessions, they're going to be able to bury you with them. Key to victory for Boston, slow down Sauer's assisted goals. I think this is an obvious one coming off of last week. He had 7 assists, which was one short of tying the PLL record. Absolutely crazy. He was off the charts last week. Sauers is a guy that guys don't really even have to be open. He can feed it into tight windows. So I'll be curious to see how they decide to play him. But I think that slowing down his feeding ability, whether it's trying to staple off ball or denying him the ball a little more, putting pressure on his hands so that he can't feed as comfortably, things like that. I think these are going to be essential for them to be able to slow down Philly's offense. It felt like almost all their last game ran through Sauers with assists and hockey assists. So I think that's going to be a focal point in the Boston film room this week and something really important to keep an eye on Friday night during the game. My prediction for this one, I think Water Dogs D is going to really struggle to contain Boston's offense. I don't think they're ready to see an offense like this yet. And they had a great game last weekend against Maryland, both sides of the field, offense and defense. But I think that Philadelphia domination was honestly as much on Maryland not dominating as it was Philadelphia dominating. So I just think Philly's not going to be ready to see an offense and a defense of this caliber yet. But obviously this is going to be only their second game of the season. I think that they have potential to get there, but I don't think that they're there yet. So overall, I think it's going to be a pretty tight one, but I think Boston's going to win this one. Game 2, California versus Utah. Keys to victory for Cali, win some matchups. This has been something they have not struggled to do yet this year. They've won matchups with relative ease in their first 2 games. But this is their biggest test yet by far. Utah's built on defense. This is a championship-level defense. They're guys who, it's a mix of young athletes and vets that have played a good amount of lacrosse together. Obviously, we've seen, last 2 weeks, they let out, I think it was 8 goals to Boston last week, and then 7 to Maryland in week 1. So they're not letting up many goals. And one thing you notice about this defense is that they win matchups. California's relied a lot on kickstarting their offense through attacking D-mids. It's clearly a coaching point in their offense is initiate against D-mids, or if we're struggling to get, to create offense, get it to a shorty, dodge the shorty. And unfortunately for them, Utah, for my money, has the best D-mid group in the league. So if there's any team that's going to be able to slow down California, it's going to be Utah. Obviously, California, athletic, fast, they're going to end up winning matchups, but I don't think they're going to win as many as they have the last couple weeks. So key to victory for Utah, clean transition and clearing. This one's obvious. It was a complete mess last game against Boston. Turnovers galore. Whether it was in clearing, early offense, throwing the ball away, missed skip passes, stuff like that. I think that's really holding this team back from taking the next step. And one thing we've seen from Cali so far this year is that they like to play fast. Obviously, they run transition. They like to play a faster brand of lacrosse. So there's going to be those transition opportunities for Utah. So can they be clean? Can they take advantage of these opportunities? That would bode really well for both their team development as an offense and as a clearing unit. But then also just in this game in particular. My prediction here, I think Cali's going to end up winning the face-off battle, maybe have a little bit of possession advantage, but I don't see them winning matchups like they have been against this, stout Utah defense. They've really been taking advantage of the D-mids like we talked about, and with Pedersen, Bond, this is a phenomenal D-mid group. So ultimately, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I think Utah's going to take this one. New York versus Maryland, Game 3, keys to victory for New York, assisted goals. You saw Sowers pick apart this team like we talked about earlier with 7 assists. Absolutely dominated this defense as a passer. And I think in order to score big against this team, it's the same recipe. And we've seen Schellenberger be able to do this. So I think it could be big games for them. Maryland looked pretty messy off ball. Guys were getting open somewhat easily in that Philadelphia game. And I think if New York can get open off ball, I think Schellenberger are going to be able to find them. I think that they could have a big offensive game here with that group. Key to victory for Maryland is at the faceoff X. Obviously, this is a heavyweight bout between Nardella and Baptiste. The best defense is a good offense. So I don't think Maryland's defense fares too well against New York's offense. Winning this face-off battle, trying to keep the ball away from New York as much as possible would be ideal because they're really not used to that, especially considering they have Baptiste. So this will be I think this will be a really tough thing to do. Baptiste is probably the best face-off guy in the world, but it's also with the PLL shot clock being so short, it's tough to really have a massive possession advantage like it is in college. Because those face-off wins generally don't turn into super high scoring opportunities. I think they just if they can win face-offs and possess and be clean with the ball, I think that they'll give themselves a chance here. Ultimately, I think it's a really tough matchup for Maryland. I think that New York matches up with them really well, and I think they're going to be able to beat them somewhat handily. So I think this is going to be a pretty solid, decisive New York win. Last game of the weekend, Game 4, Philadelphia's second game of their doubleheader, Philly versus Denver. Key to victory for Philly, I think it's going to be goaltending. We saw with Blaze and we saw with Chase Erlin, I believe, in week 1 against this Denver team. They take a lot of shots. They take these tough shots like we talked about last week. Not that they settle more. I don't know if they settle for bad shots. More so their offense is so reliant on 1v1 dodging. It's pretty stagnant outside of that. It ends up being a lot of shots on the run, shots going full speed, shots that, below 30% shots. So we like I said, we saw Blaze set the PLL save record last week against this team. I think it could be, if DeLuca's seeing the ball, I think it could be a massive game for him, a career game for him, but he's going to need to do that in order for Philly to win this game because there's going to be no shortage of shots taken from Denver. For Denver, key to victory is keep developing the offense. Can they be a week better from last week? The expectations, the potential for this group is obviously through the roof. That's all I feel like, the buzz around Denver has been. You got the 4 Tewaaraton guys and all that. There's a lot of potential here. I think in order for them to win, they need to be a week better than last week. They're getting closer. I feel like they're improving, like they have improved over the last couple weeks. But it's time for them to take the next step, get some assisted goals, get some more off-ball movement, play more cohesively. Hopefully adding Eric Law to the lineup can do that for them. But we will see. My prediction, I think this could be a semi-high scoring game. I don't see either of these defenses faring too well against the other offenses. I think Denver is going to be able to win a lot of 1v1 matchups. And I think Philly's offense is going to be a little too cohesive for Denver's defense. They haven't seen an offense of this caliber yet, it seems. I feel like it's going to go like pretty similar to how last week's doubleheader game went with Carolina and California. Homecoming teams are 0-2 in their second game of their doubleheader so far this year, and I think it's going to go to 0-3. I feel like Philly's going to jump out early, probably, as Denver, they're still developing as a team, and particularly as an offense. I think Denver's going to bounce back. Their legs are going to be a little fresher. I think they're going to end up coming back and taking this one for a pretty, semi-high scoring win here. All right, so overall, my picks, Boston, Utah, New York, and Denver. We'll see how those picks do. And thank you for tuning in to Lacrosse TV. This was the PLL Week 3 preview, and we'll catch you after the weekend.